Now, I know that we are 6 weeks into 2019, so it's kind of old news on what my top five books of 2018 are, but I'd like to share them with you anyway. So here are the five books that I would recommend adding to your to read list above any other books. These are the five books that I read last year that my advice to you would be read them this year. Number five is Martin Luther, the Man Who Rediscovered God and Changed the World by Eric Metaxas. This is really in the top five just simply because I'm a huge fan of Martin Luther. I have my little Martin Luther Playmobil toy here that I got for the 500th anniversary. And so I love Luther. I love his ministry that he had to impact the church in such a powerful way to deliver us from the bondage that the church was under the popes and the Roman Catholic Church of the Middle Ages. And so I so appreciate what Luther did as a man. And Eric Metaxas presents us with a wonderful biography on Luther's life. Out of all the biographies I've read on Luther's life, this to me best put me into the world of Martin Luther, showed me what it was like to live in that time period, to be under that bondage of ignorance that people were in the Roman Church, to be able to be brought out into the light when Luther delivered them the scriptures and teaching that was based on the Word of God as opposed to on church tradition and man made philosophies. My number four book is The Law of Rewards by Randy Alcorn. This really short book will be extremely helpful in order to allow you to have the right mindset for how you should live every day of your life. The Law of Rewards is all about using your money, not for today, not for the next 10 years or 30 years, but to use your finances to lay up treasures in heaven. This is the idea of becoming so heavenly minded that you are the most earthly good as possible. I don't think we think enough about our lives and eternity and about reaping rewards for heaven and the Law of Rewards by Randy Alcorn. And I've got to say, it's a short book. It will take you so little time to read through it. Will help you be able to get that heavenly focus for all eternity. My third book is the Autobiography on George Muller. I put this book out for a long time because I did not want to read a book about a man starting an orphanage, which is what the Autobiography of George Muller is really about. But I gotta say, I was so wrong. I should have read this book so much earlier. The Autobiography of George Muller is really a book that's all about prayer. And it's about the power that one individual can have when they become sold out to prayer and to trusting in God to answer the prayers of his people. If you want to pray more in 2019, the best way to increase your prayer life, I would say, is to read this book, to read the Autobiography of George Muller, so you can be inspired to pray like this man of God. The number two book on my list is The Cross of Christ by John Stott. This is a little bit longer book. It's a theological book on the importance of the death of Jesus Christ, on how his death brought salvation to our souls. And it's a really worthwhile book that really dives deep into the scriptures teaching on why Jesus died for us, what he accomplished on the cross. And if you don't normally get into a little bit longer theological books, I think this would be a great journey for you to dive into the most important event in human history, and that is the cross of Christ. And John Stott is a fantastic writer. He's a great theologian, and I would recommend this book for you in 2019. And the number one book on my list is The Peacemaker by Ken Sande. This is a book that every person who is part of a church, who attends a church, should read, should put right at the top of your must-reads list, because we have too much division, too much strife in our churches today. Bitterness, lying, slander. And the Peacemaker helps us to bridge those divisions that are created by our sin. Divisions will inevitably come into our churches. People will misconstrue things that you say. They will not follow through on things that they had promised to do, and divisions will arise. Well, how do you bring peace in the midst of the conflict? And this is what the Peacemaker is all about. And every church, I believe, would do well to have a handful, 10, 15 people who have read this book so they are ready and eager and willing to be like Jesus and to bring peace where there was nothing but conflict and division, so that God's churches can be a stable witness for Him in this fallen world. So there are my top 5 books for 2019. So I'd say if you want to put any books on your to read list still for 2019, still looking for a couple more books to read, these are the 5 that I would pick. So it's Martin Luther by Eric Metaxas, The Law of Rewards by Randy Alcorn, The Autobiography of George Muller, The Cross of Christ by John Stott, and finally The Peacemaker by Ken Sande. These are 5 wonderful books that will help you to stay engaged in the world of Christian literature and grow in your knowledge and your understanding of how to live as a disciple of Jesus Christ.